Hi, and welcome to our March edition of Art Together. Today we're going to look at work from the Arkansas Museum of Fine Arts Foundation collection that focuses on a theme of landscapes. I'm going to turn things over to our docent, Sharon Kemp, that's going to run through this program with you.
Hello. These are beautiful landscapes. Some of them will remind us of the winter that we've had. And some of them, like this one, looks like spring or summer. This is by Asher Durand, who is an American artist, and it's called Study for a June Shower. So when we're looking at Mr. Durand's work, he started out as an engraver. So some of his drawings are very precise, how it goes from the light to the dark, how it seems to run. There's movement, let's say that much. So when we're looking at this painting, what do you see? It's an oil painting on canvas. I have to admit that the first thing I saw was the clouds. And then I looked at the title and said, oh, Study for a June Shower. Yes, it's about to rain. But what else do you see? Do you see the sunshine hitting on the ground? The sun hitting the trees? The sun hitting the path? The sun is peeking through clouds, and then the clouds we see ahead show us that it's going to rain. And that little glimpse of a river or a stream with a little beach beside it. What do you think? I like to imagine that maybe we're going fly fishing in that stream. And maybe we're thinking twice because of the rain clouds. I don't know as I'd want to be standing by the stream if it starts to rain heavily. But I also think we're out here now. No matter what, we're going to get wet. But we can see patches where the sun is very bright, even up underneath those clouds. What do you think? Maybe we could go hide under the trees until the rain passes. Maybe we'll be stuck on the path. We're gonna get wet. But it's still a beautiful scene. I was struck by how, with the light and the dark, Mr. Durand was able to really show us the shapes of the trees. With the light and the dark, and the tops where the sunlight is hitting the leaves. Where do you think he's going? Do you think he should turn around? I wonder if Mr. Durand even knew. Maybe we should go on to the next painting. Okay, after the winter we had this year, I loved this painting. William Fellini is an American artist. And he was a folk artist. When you look at this house, what do you see? The first thing I saw when I looked at this painting was footsteps going up to the door. I like to think they were running quickly through the snow, and the smoke coming out of the chimney. There is a nice warm fire inside that cabin. And lots of snow. You know, he earned his living as a house painter and a decorator, not as someone who painted pictures. And when you look at this house, he was a folk artist. It looks rather flat. The perspective seems to be off. But the whole idea of a nice, warm place in the middle of winter. And it seems to be in a clearing. What do you think's going on inside that house? A cup of coffee? A cup of cocoa? The interesting thing about Mr. Fellini is he never sold a painting in his lifetime. Never. They were all sold after his death. And then people that bought his paintings, because they loved the folk art qualities of them, they found out that, I guess you'd have to say, he was so poor that he painted on both sides of most all of his paintings. So you'd buy the painting on the outside and you wonder what's on the other side. Many of them had something painted on both sides. But what I really loved too about this painting was the colors in the snow. I have to admit, this winter when we had so much snow, I didn't really pay a lot of attention to the colors of the snow, but the pinks and the lavenders and the grays. Can you see all those colors? And the pinks and the grays and the taupey browns and sort of gold that show up in the sky that he painted. And here's this one cabin out in the middle of a clearing. And I like to think the forest is all around. Big trees and snow. And is it a cabin just by itself? Does he have a barn with animals in it? Does he have any neighbors? All of these things I try and imagine when I look at this, because I kept thinking of our winter when it's so cold and so snowy. But it is really, really a beautiful painting. Just looking at all the color. I like to think that there is all those colors in the snow. I can't imagine all of the snow we had around here. I didn't look at the colors. I just saw that it was cold. But inside that cabin, we know there's a fire. We hope there's something warm to drink. Thank you, Mr. Fellini, for a glimpse at the winter that we had this year. Let's go on to the next painting. Carol Clore, good Arkansan. He was actually born in Earle, Arkansas, and he painted all of these wonderful paintings. Many of them were memories of his childhood. We don't know if this was one of them. It's called A Drought of Fishes. Well, it doesn't look like they had any kind of drought with these fishes, because you look at the fish and the different fish and a crawdad and a turtle and catfish and brim. Looks like crappie too. And I have to admit that I looked at this painting a lot before I ever saw the man holding the net. What did you see when you first looked at this painting? I saw the fish. I have to admit, I saw the fish. And then I noticed the net. And then the man standing in the water holding the net. But he must have been standing there for a long time, because that water is very still. It's like a mirror. It's so still, reflecting what's happening on the other side of this small lake. Just beautiful trees. But it's so golden. It's so still. Is it early morning? Or is it near sunset? Because it's so golden and calm. You think of drought, you think of not having whatever it is you're talking about. Well, if this is a drought of fishes, he's got lots of fish there. And they're scooping them out with a big net. He doesn't have a pole, just a net. What do you think he's going to do with all those fish? Is he pulling out fish for a party for the family? Big barbecue? I don't know. And it's got to be summertime, because the gentleman's out there in just his overalls, not a shirt. So it's warm. Gonna do something fun with all those fish. Carol Clore left Arkansas and lived in other parts of the Delta. He went away to the South Pacific with the Army Air Corps during the Second World War, and then came home and continued to paint. During the Second World War in the Air Corps, he made extra money painting pictures of ladies on the sides of airplanes for people, for the different pilots. They'd ask him, and often he would have a picture of their girlfriend, and he would paint her on the side of their airplanes as they flew off to war. Just a beautiful, beautiful picture. I just wonder if it's one of his childhood memories that he was so famous for painting. He worked a lot from family photos, different members of the family and pictures that they had or pictures that he had collected from his own family. And he would paint these glorious pictures. And there's a couple of Carol Clore's pieces in the collection in Little Rock. It's just so calm and so quiet. And I keep wondering, isn't there anybody in the family that's going to come jump in the lake and scare all the fish? What do you think? Have you ever been fishing on a calm lake like that? I have to admit, I never have. And I also have to admit, I'm not big on catfish. So I would probably be the last one in the family to go catch catfish. But it's a beautiful painting. So let's leave the Delta and check on our next picture. Maurice Citrillo. He's French. And this is a scene, again, in the snow in Paris, in Montmartre. He lived there most all of his life. He did travel, but he painted a lot. What he saw, where he lived. He specialized in cityscapes. He loved them. And what we know of him, his father is unknown. His mother was an artist and a model, and it was his mother that taught him to paint. And it's a very distinct style. And they had very little money. So he painted on everything from wood to canvas. He even is known for doing some of his paintings on cardboard, of all things, some of which have survived, some haven't. But this was another one I thought of when I thought of our winter and in the snow. And I have to admit, I didn't go very many places in the snow when we had it this winter. But these women seemed to be on their way somewhere. Maybe they're going to the market. Maybe they've got other shopping they have to do. But it's a dead-end street in the snow. The other problem he had, though, he started drinking very heavily when he was a teenager and had problems with alcoholism the rest of his life. And yet, in the midst of everything, he produced thousands of paintings, most often cityscapes, like this one in Paris, this one in Montmartre. But even with all of the snow, the people are dressed in colors, the colors of the shutters, the colors on the buildings, like draperies inside the windows. And straight ahead, we see a building that has a lot of gold and things on it. I couldn't quite figure out what he was doing there, but I really loved it. It was like fireworks in front of that building. My eye was drawn there immediately. Just the way he's made the perspective go in this city street in Montmartre. Kind of sucks us in, like the ladies going off wherever it is they're going. But he lived most of his life in Montmartre, and he painted it over and over and over again. And in all of this bit of street that we see, there's only one street light. I think it would be very dark there once it gets dark in the evening. And the snow looks dirty. You're in the middle of a city. And once again, in the snow, we see lots of colors, the pinks and the golds and the grays, the blues. Even in the sky, there's a bit of gold. Is that the sun or just a reflection that he sees? And what about that gold building with all the color in front of it? I don't know. But the more I stare at it, the more I want to know, where are those women going? What do they have planned? Did they know he was painting their picture? Or when he looked at this street scene, were they really there or not? And he just added them in. There's just so much. How many stories can you think up for what those women are doing or going? And they seem to be going, except for the one that's all alone, closest to us. The others seem to be in pairs. Who are they? Where are they going? I guess we'll never know. Let's try one more from an American artist. John Marin. A beach scene in New Jersey. He's known for his abstract paintings. This is a watercolor. And I stared at this one for the longest time. Take some time and look. What do you see? Edgewater on Hudson. Probably the Hudson River. I think I see a boat straight ahead, leaning up against a building. Is that a house? Mr. Marin started out studying to be an architect. And there seems to be something in the way he draws buildings. Maybe that's a holdover from when he was trying to be an architect. Then he went and studied art in Philadelphia, traveled through Europe, did many paintings, came back to the United States, and he did many paintings in Maine and New York and New Jersey. But this is another one that at first glance, it's buildings in a boat by a shore. And yet, when you look, I think you see much more. What did you see first when you looked at this? Was it one of the buildings? What attracted you to the building? Was it the color? Was it the shape? And then there's that poor lonely boat stuck up there. Does it need repair? Is it in storage because they're not going out and going fishing or going anywhere for a while? I love what he's done with color and the different lines and the different colors. The blues, the purples, the golds, and how he's just sort of splashed the color because it's watercolor. And then there's some pencil lines in there too. He painted this in 1892. It's just an amazing piece. All of the landscapes that we've had today are all so very different, and yet all of them tell a story. We'll have to wait and see what we come up with next month for a story. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Thank you. See you next month.